I really hate hurting innocent mobs. Like, really hate it. It feels like it's designed to be almost impossible in this game to get loads of items without either hurting cute little animals and hearing their whines,
This isn't even all of them, to be honest.
or committing what, in the real world, you'd probably describe as a war crime against villagers. So I've built some, let's say, unconventional farms that help me get the items I want, or at least most of them, without doing that. To do this, I play by some rules. This is just how I like to play, so I'm not expecting any of you to follow these rules. The reasons behind it are really that, one, I genuinely just don't like hurting even fake animals. I'm a vegetarian in real life, so it just feels weird, but I don't judge other people for playing a game how it's designed to be played. And two, and maybe the most important, honestly, is that it's just more fun to have limitations. Because when you get to the late game in Minecraft, it gets quite easy. For instance, I don't have iron farms at all. I have no renewable way of getting iron. I have to mine for it because part of my rules means that I can't kill iron golems and I can't purposely scare villagers. So the restrictions just mean I have to design my own unique farms, which I'll show you those. A few of them anyway. What are the rules? The main two rules, as you can see here, are minimize harm and law over mechanics. Minimize harm is pretty self-explanatory. The main goal is always to minimize harm to innocent mobs. Usually that means peaceful, but just generally non-evil mobs. That means also I can't purposely put mobs into harm, and I can't keep them in inhumane conditions and stuff like that. The second one, law over mechanics. Now, obviously, as a redstoner, I love me some obscure Minecraft mechanics, but what I mean by this is just that the law of the world takes precedent over the underlying mechanics. So a good example of this is probably villagers. Villagers are clearly supposed to be intelligent in the law of Minecraft. They've built villages, they can trade for goods, they have their own currencies, but in the actual mechanics of the game, there's probably more intelligent bricks in the world. Because of the law, I need to treat villagers as if they're as intelligent as implied. I have to treat them with respect. I have to give them conditions that I would want a person to be in. But any Minecraft mechanic tricks that work on villagers' limited AI, but wouldn't work on a real person, are fine. The smaller rules I have grouped into these three sections here. The first one, no killing, harming, or intentionally leading to harm any passive mobs. Blanket rule. This has some annoying connotations. So obviously I can't eat meat, but there's stuff like golden carrots and whatever in the game, so it's not big of a deal. But there's stuff like I can't ever get a blue axolotl in my world, because breed axolotls you have to feed them live buckets of fish. Fishing I can't do because, again, even though mechanic wise no fish are dying, law of the world, you're very clearly fishing for fish. Next, no killing or harming any neutral mobs unless in self-defense. And I can't intentionally put myself into situations where I need to defend myself. This, by the way, also applies to hostile mobs with real world analogs, so I can't kill hoglins, for instance. The implications of this is no iron farms, like I said. Iron golems are so cute. I'm not going to be walking around murdering a load of the little automatons from Studio Ghibli's Castle in the Sky. Absolutely not. I also can't kill Endermen. Well, when I first started playing, I did because I thought they were hostile. I had the horrifying realization that they don't just attack you whenever, they only attack you if you provoke them by looking them in the eye. And you know what? Understandable. I'm autistic too. The sort of caveat here is that I can't actively hurt zombie piglin, but because in the lore of the world, in my interpretation of the lore of the world anyway, zombiness as a whole is like an evil force in the world. But because they're neutral, I don't actively harm them. So if they fall to harm by trying to hurt something else, like for instance, turtle eggs, then I don't have to stop it. In fact, I don't have to do anything about it. I have a farm which uses that. But the one thing with this is if they ever introduce curing zombie piglins, like they have for zombie villagers, then I can't do this anymore. Because like them existing in the world would count as harm to an innocent mob, and I would have to counteract that. But that's not happened yet, and probably won't happen for a while. Finally, no harming any passive or neutral intelligent mobs, or keeping them in inhumane conditions. So the examples obviously being villagers. I can't purposely zombify villagers to get their prices down. Can't put them into inhumane farms or villager breeders. Same goes for piglin bartering. The implication of this is that all hostile mobs are really up for grabs, except for the real world analogous ones. The exception to this being zombie villagers, where I have a duty to cure them. So I can't really make regular mob farms because they can produce zombie villagers unless I sort them out, which I do, and I'll show you that as well. Oh, before I do show you those, I haven't done this before, but if you like this video, why don't you like it? And comment and subscribe. I feel like that's a proper YouTuber thing to do. So let's show you some of my unconventional farms. Farm number 1. So generally when people make Witherose farms, they use the end, because you have really nice enderman spawning conditions and there's really nice bedrock formations in the end gateways to keep a wither in place. But I didn't want to do that, obviously, because I didn't want to hurt the enderman. So instead I made this. I made this perimeter a while ago to make a creeper farm that's over there. And I realized it was a really good chance to find the perfect bedrock formation in the overworld. Because whenever you see wither cages in the overworld, they always use like these precariously placed boats or something. And so I was too scared to make one of these for ages. Until I sort of thought of how you could build one out of bedrock. You just got to find a bedrock structure where there's a bedrock on top and then a tube that can hold a wither. So it's a lot of effort. Preferably, you have to do as little bedrock breaking as possible, but there's quite a lot of bedrock breaking that needs to be done. So this took ages and so many TNT. The gist is this wither is completely stuck within this bedrock. And if it did break any blocks, the only block it could break is this slab that it's standing on. If that ever did happen, which it hasn't yet anyway, all that would happen is the wither would fall out of the world and eventually die. Otherwise, this is essentially just a creeper farm. Now, obviously, it's a slightly weird creeper farm in that it's inverted, as well as wanting to flood the platform. I also want to light up the platform every time, because otherwise glow squids spawn at these Y levels. And when I made this, the copper bulb hadn't even been announced, so I had to use lava, and the easiest way to do that was just to do it on 2 separate sides. By doing this, every time there's water there, the water is lit, so no glow squids can spawn. This also seems to act like a bat spawner. Lots of bats come out of this, but poking a few 1-block holes into this mean all the bats get out before they fall down to the wither. Because of optimal spawning conditions, because this is a perimeter, it's pretty fast. This is how many wither roses created since I've been here. Not long. In most designs for wither rose farms, they use chickens, and I'm not a fan of that. Here I use a creeper. This creeper has to be name tagged. This one's named Rose Buddies as well, because they're best friends. Or at least they spend a lot of time together. Number 2. This is a zombie villager farm. I'll turn sounds down again. I can't purposely zombify villagers, so I need a farm to find them in the wild. This is just a regular mob farm. And all of the mobs go up and then fall to here, so they're 1 hit. If I see any zombie villagers, I have some options. I can close this so that no other mobs fall into this area. If it's not close enough to the edge of the block, I can then open this lever to push them over. And then I can release a minecart to pick up a mob and extract it. So I can either cure it, or if I didn't pick up the right mob, and just continue that until I find and cure zombie villagers. It also gives me a fair amount of items, which is nice. The iron especially is quite nice. But it is a bit manual. I would prefer a more automatic way of sorting out zombie villagers, but they're really hard to sort out from regular zombies. I am working on a zombie farm though. So this is in a plains biome, but I have one of these for every single biome, so I can get one of every villager. This is my library, and as you can see, I've got a librarian from every type of village, each with his own discounted trade, because each of these comes from a zombie villager that was found in one of these farms. So I didn't actually have to purposely harm any. Next is a fairly simple one. It's a music disc farm. which is basically just a massive creeper farm where the creepers lead up into this chamber with some skeleton. The main reason this is unconventional is because there's no iron golems. This is entirely player based. So the player will stand here and get attacked by these skeletons. Creepers will then fly up this water column, come over here, and get killed. You'll see I have a music disc sorting system. That's what the music was coming up. The sorting system isn't mine, I followed this design here. So the items are filtered and then the music discs get sorted into these shulker boxes, which are then put into these chests. Yeah, I have way more music discs than I'll ever need. But yeah. Hear that croaking? Yep. Number 4 is a froglight farm. So this is just a normal portal spam magma cube farm, but there is a chance in every froglight farm I've tried to build anyway, and I got through quite a few, that eventually some of the frogs die, especially if it's super high rates, which this farm generates quite a lot of magma cube, and I think it was the entity cramming that was killing the frogs. The way that I decided to minimize harm to the frogs was to have them in basically an infinite buffet. So the frogs are inside stair blocks, and because stone cutters are 1 pixel higher than a slab or a stair block, the frogs can't go onto these blocks here. So they can't actually move into the same area as the magma cubes, but they can push each other side to side. There's also this powdered snow and water streams to make sure any big slimes split up before they reach down here. And then I have these wither roses here just because I found there were too many magma cube, so I need to cull the herd a bit. Number 5. This is a wither skeleton farm. Talking about bedrock breaking before, I blew up this entire area of roof by hand, 1 TNT at a time, or 2 TNT at a time, I guess, to get just a little bit higher rates in my wither skeleton farm. I was on the leave of absence from a PhD. This sort of like fence around it are actually tripwires that send a signal to turn on and off these portals here because they're inside the range. So I just get rid of these spawning spots. Otherwise, you end up with loads of zombie piglins going through here. We'll turn those off. Otherwise, this doesn't look particularly unconventional. I mean, I've slabbed the whole nether to get better spawning rates, and I've got pretty much the same setup as most people. It's a crossroad in a nether fortress, the sort of the classic. But the main difference, and the only reason this is really unconventional, is it has a piglin brute in the center instead of a regular piglin or an iron golem. Iron golems aren't allowed because they're neutral, and piglins aren't allowed because, well, they're neutral and also they're intelligent mobs. I'm allowing myself to use piglin brutes though, because as well as them being hostile mobs, there is the implication that they are the same species as piglins, but they're just really mean versions. I mean, they're called brutes. So what I actually do, and this is a massive pain in the ass, I sort of class this as being a prison to try and rehabilitate them. It doesn't work because how would that work? Essentially, I'll come in here every few months. Their sentence is looked at every 4 months. I'll come in here, try and take them out, and then if they attack me, then I'll put them back in. But if they can get on good behavior if they wanted to. It's custom redstone, but it's nothing particularly special. These lightning rods move back and forth to make sure that the items can fall down. A load of glass blocks and sticky pistons push the items down into a slime block launcher, and they get picked up by item filters. I've recently retrofitted it with a load of crafters, so now it generates bone blocks and coal blocks. In fact, to sort of it creates so many bone blocks and coal blocks that I exclusively use coal blocks to fuel things now, which is a bit of a flex. And it generates quite a lot of wither skulls. My goal in this world is to eventually have a double chest of every item. And so one of the more challenging parts of that is needing a double chest of wither skulls, beacons, and nether stars. So for the beacons and nether stars, you need 6 shulkers of wither skulls each. This is also my XP source, since I don't have an ender. This is my main XP source. This is how I repair all my tools. Number 6. So this is the cathedral I built basically to be my redstone farm. I find it easy to motivate myself to make builds if they have like a purpose within the world. So the library that you saw earlier is a fun library build, but also it's where I keep my enchanted books. And this is my cathedral. It has a few fun things. It has a bell tower at the top. It has a graveyard because I'm a very cheery guy. The stained glass is designed after the desert temples because in my interpretation of the lore of the world, the religion of this cathedral is related to the religion of the desert temples, but like thousands of years earlier. Within the cathedral, more stained glass that represent different mob heads. You've got your organ. The organ itself is just dragon heads on armor stands. This is the first cleric that you'll see, where I can do some trading with him. There are some pews up here. If I jump up and down here, yeah, there's a skulk sensor over there in the ground, and if someone sits standing on this block and jumps up and down, then it actually does ring some bells. Also, I use anvils as banisters, which you might be wondering, I thought you didn't have iron farms. You're correct, I don't. But you can duplicate anvils with end portals. Also, the basement has a crypt, which just fun. But the point of this build, and the reason I built it in the first place, is for trading. Each line of these villages includes a cleric villager from each biome, and they're all going to sell me redstone and lapis and glowstone, and they have 1 gold for an emerald trade. So if I want to get emeralds through my gold farm, I can. These villages are all just standing on carpet, and they're all very happy to just be standing where they are. Now, in the lore of the world, again, I'm treating them as intelligent beings. If they wanted to, they could just walk past here. But they don't. They just stand where they stood. And the reason for that is they're standing on honey blocks, so they can't jump over their workstations. And surrounding it are berry bushes. The little trick in Minecraft is mobs don't like to walk over berry bushes, even if they're covered in carpet, even if they can't see them. So in the lore of the world, they just want to stay where they are and trade. But if they wanted to, they could go to their apartments. I have a city build that this is part of. Well, this is right on the edge of. So this is the library, and the city is over there. And they have apartments that they can live in. They just choose to stay here. Number 7. This is a free roam sheep farm. There's 3 of every colour of sheep, and then white has a few more. And they can roam in this area as much as they like. But if they come over to this little paddock, they can... They really love this paddock, don't they? Jeez. I'm trying to show it. Move out of the way, please. There's a pressure plate next to... there's a pressure plate next to a dispenser with shears in it, so whenever a sheep walks past one, it gets sheared, and then the carpets around here are covering hoppers, so the wool gets collected, goes through item sorters, and then gets filtered through into each of these shulker boxes. By the way, this little circuit here with a comparator, item frame comparator, means that this comparator only lights up if this shulker is completely full. So if any of these are completely full, a signal gets sent up here. This light here turns on. So if I walk past here and this light is on, I know there's some shulker boxes of wool to collect. I'm going to class this as 6.1. So this here is a egg farm. Within the coop itself, there's some farmland. If any of the chickens are inside here, when they lay their eggs, like this little one's coming in to lay some eggs, it'll drop and it'll get collected by some hoppers. They go into a shulker loader that's beneath here, and then they funnel into this barrel. Both the wool farm and the egg farm are really slow, but this way I get a really consistent long-term amount of items. Finally, there's this ink farm. And the principle here is just that squid are really bad at staying alive. Squid will regularly beach themselves onto land and die. Every time I see it happening, I try and stop it, but you can't stop all of them. Sometimes they're within your simulation distance, and you can't do anything about it. When that's the case, I've got this allay. So this allay here is attracted to a note block. This moss carpet is floating above this note block, so it doesn't interfere with the sound. I used the floating carpet trick from my first video and the internet. The allay is constantly being drawn back to this note block, so if ever it sees any ink sacs appear because a squid has died nearby, then it will drop it into here and I'll passively get some amount of ink. I also have the exact same setup for glow ink. The difference is I do allow myself to have glow squid spawn in the same place that axolotls spawn. So although you don't see any axolotls here now, sometimes axolotls will spawn in here, and if they do, then they'll kill the glow squid, and then the glow squid will get picked up by this allay. The exact same principle though. These squid ink farms are super slow, like they barely trickle in, but there's a similarly consistent small amount, so I end up with some amount of glow ink and ink sacs. What's pretty clear is because squid will spawn in any river, and there's just no way I'm going to be able to stop all squid from spawning on the surface. I'd have to just get rid of all the water, which seems ecologically worse. Like, you're not helping a species by destroying its habitat. So squid will beach themselves onto the sides of rivers all the time and die. And then downstairs in the basement, there's the glow ink farm. Glow squid won't try and die beaching themselves on the side of rivers since they're in mostly completely submerged caves. But if an axolotl spawns, it will occasionally kill them. So you'll end up with some amount of glow ink, and it's fine in terms of my moral code because that's just part of the ecology of the world. As part of environmentalism, predators are also important, as much as it is sad. But yeah, those are my unconventional farms. Let me know if you have any weird rules or any weird unconventional farms that you've made in your world. I find that stuff really interesting, and I want to build way more. I have more, but this is a nice selection of some of the more interesting, important ones. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this little glimpse at my survival world was interesting. I have so many builds in this world. This world is 4 years old now, which is wild. Thanks so much. See you next time. Soon.